And so that'll take that out because of Yasuo's ability. He'll level up. And then because he's now the 5/5, but also he's leveled, that'll take out our crowd favorite. Discard aggro. It's been a while since I've seen this. But you have to assume that's what it's going to be when you see Jinx and Draven on the other side. So for today's video, we're going to be playing Leona and Yasuo. So this is basically Daybreak package with some stuns thrown in for the Yasuo side of things. I am running one singular will because it can sometimes serve as a pretty decent functional finisher, and I think we threw everything back to just try to find better early game. Didn't really find it. There was a consideration about maybe keeping the concussive palm just because it's a good stall tool, and if you don't have early game you can get there pretty quickly with your spell mana. So for example, right now, despite throwing it back, we still didn't find it. And it is worth noting, while this is a bit more mid-rangey, there are definitely early game cards in this list we'll see at the end of the video. We just didn't find them. And we're gonna take the sisters mostly because I think the lifesteal is going to be very relevant by the time we get to that stage. Yeah, see, this is kind of what we were looking for, but I think here we're gonna end up playing Leona, just try to stall a little bit, but we're gonna take a lot of damage from this open attack. Or not an open attack. So this is a beautiful stun. Very needed, very necessary in my opinion. They're gonna be attacking again on 6. So we'll have to consider how we want to tackle that as well. More and more it's looking like I really wish I would have saved that palm, but now we get the palm, so we'll go ahead and develop a Yasuo because that opens things up a lot for us by having him on the board, as you can see with the Tempests there as well. And I think this is a pass.
Is he here yet?
So they're going to also pick up Draven. This is likely going to flip. We're in a really rough spot without any sort of real board sweep here, but not much we can do about that at the moment. So we can get a lot of stuns in here, or we could play this for the lifesteal, but given the board state, I think we play for the stuns, and then on our turn we likely develop this. Or on our turn we might even end up going with a Yone to flip our Yasuo by that point, because there's a strong chance this might be 3 full stuns. You know, I actually kind of want that back. If we're gonna go with the stuns, maybe you can argue you also play this Daybreak unit, because that still leaves us with 2 stuns available, but since it costs 8, well, even more so, I think this is the right play, right? You can play this and then that still leaves us with 8 spell mana. So again, a bit of a misplay on my part here, but
I will protect you.
we're gonna go with a lot of stuns here. I do not think I want to risk losing the Yasuo. Leona, I'm kind of okay with her derfing it if they really want to blow a bunch of resources on buffing this, but I don't want to put Yasuo in harm's way here. So I think we're going to do this. And the reason we don't want to lose Yasuo is, again, we might develop this to get the lifesteal up and running on our turn, but Yone means that the first thing is stunned and the second one is going to get the full effects of Yasuo as well. And so with the damage Yasuo is going to apply, we can clean some of these up, which is a pretty big deal. And at this point, I think we banked the spell mana. Again, this was a whiff. I could have also blocked this spider. And so I think here what we do is, in terms of the targeting, we want to get rid of this, and then we're also going to target this.
At last, I have found you. Yone, turn back while you can.
And so that'll take that out because of Yasuo's ability. He'll level up. And then because he's now the 5/5, but also he's leveled, that'll take out our crowd favorite. And so while it was looking really dire before, we managed to stall, and that's with my play mistake. And make no mistake about it, not playing that soldier that last turn was a play mistake. Being able to block an extra spider was very relevant, so.
Time for the moneymakers. The answer is yes, somewhere.
All right, so we are going to lose the Leona. And I'm glad we got rid of the Jinx at this point because clearly the Experimenter was in a prime position to punish us for that. And now, for the first time in a while here, I think we're actually going to go on offense. Just because of the quick attack, and they don't really have a lot in this package that can buff toughness. So even if they have things that buff attack, and then if they buff attack and trade into this, it's no different whether it was on offense or defense, I don't think. So I think we do this. I probably wouldn't attack with the Yone if we didn't have this on backup on reserve here, but this next turn is likely going to be this if they give us an open play, and then we'll develop this after the fact just to get that lifesteal up and running.
This is coming right up. Honorable. Your attack is obvious.
I think something like this is fine. Again, I don't think we want to put Yasuo in harm's way. So as long as they can't burst us from here, they do have the 4 cards in hand. Well, they had a couple of Get Excited. I was just about to say, with Get Exciteds and things like that, believe it or not, dropping to sub 10 health is actually a wee bit dangerous. Anytime you're up against this Piltover Noxus combo, there are some concerns, but we'll take this, even though it doesn't matter. We're going to take this because we want that Daybreak trigger.
You should try blinking sometime.
Now we just have to hope that our lifesteal unit survives.
No, it's your fault. We are doing it.
And we would really like to find a stun of some kind, or even like a singular will. A singular will this next turn actually probably just outright wins us the game. But
It's Raven time.
Looking good, kid.
Now it's a party.
Splitter here is actually kind of a nice pickup. We're a little bit worried about them hitting us with the rocket, and we don't have any immediate stuns available, unfortunately.
One blade, one purpose.
I want to take the open attack. Playing one extra Daybreak unit here, not necessarily a huge deal. So they get this down to 1 because they're planning on emptying their hand and then hitting us with the rocket, so. That's most certainly annoying. But we thankfully have our own potential counterplay here. So we're gonna again take our Daybreak trigger just in case we do find a Leona in the future, but then we're hoping that this Mind Splitter will close it out for us, because that means we're going to lose these at the start of the turn. Now they do have the 2 elusive units. We only have 1 elusive blocker, so if they have removal, they can start whittling away at us, but our board position's pretty good. Oh, and the top deck of the Hush really helps us out here. So we can play this and then still have enough for 2 Hushes. So I think that's fine. Sunburst is also a good pickup here. Oh, this Hush is going to be kind of devastating. You know what? I don't even want to put 2 damage on that. Well, all right. So really the question here is, do we want to bank spell mana? for next turn. And actually, I think that's fair. Let's put one damage here and we'll hush the one. We know what their card in hand is, so we'll just do this. And if they want to, well, they can't, because it's always, it's not like jury rig where you are down. So yeah, they just lose it, and we'll bank our spell mana and we'll call it good. I kind of was hoping they were going to swing with the crowd favorite, but I guess with the 8/8 they were a bit timid to do so, you know, rightfully so. But we're gonna remove their biggest threat, mostly because it has a high amount of toughness. Oh, that's gotta hurt. I kind of feel bad for him. Always Daybreak for us, so we'll go ahead and do this. And then we're pretty comfortable bringing the heat, as they say. Do it in this order. I don't think they can survive this because of the overwhelm.
This is gonna hurt for you.
Their inability to block
Your name on it.
everything, and with the overwhelm, I'm pretty sure is lethal. So that's going to be a great game, and we're going to go to a second game, but that is what the deck is trying to do. Yasuo and Daybreak Targon package. Pretty straightforward, but a lot of fun. So let's play a second game. Well, this is a nightmare matchup. Oh, okay. I don't actually know that we can win this. So we went from something that was, you know, a pretty solid game to game 2 being a nightmare matchup. So we're up against Karma and Ezreal. They don't really give us a lot of things to target for stuns. So it just kind of becomes like, can we face race them? And we're not really a deck built for face racing. All right. Is it weird that I actually think discarding Yasuo is potentially the right call here? I think we're gonna get rid of this. That's the least race-friendly card that we see there, and we're gonna grab this elusive 3-drop to replace it.
Bless the faithful and sear the heretics.
And I was gonna say this is potentially hit with a thermal, but not at the moment. Possible they're just sitting on the mystic shot and they're waiting for the +1/+1 to wear off, and they, you know, don't want to waste it on the 1/1. And I don't blame them. But yeah, this is a beautiful example, right? Like, Steel Tempest in this matchup is just not very good. All right, I'll take the bait. They didn't play anything. We're probably waiting for me to play something so they can Static Shock and Mystic Shot. And the downside is, like, even if you expect that to be their play, oh wow, okay, I was gonna say, even if you expect that to be their play, you still, in my opinion, play into it. But with the Poro emotes, I think their hand might be a bit rough, and now they don't even have enough mana to do that. And so, like, if they hit Yasuo with the thermal, that's fine, but
I fight with my spirit, not my fists.
I think we send it all. They can get a value block here,
The dragon
but
bonds
I mean, it only saves them 1 damage. I expect this to be like double Mystic Shot or something. Now, I was close, not quite double Mystic Shot. Now they will get the Dragonling, but
breathe in, breathe out.
if we really want, we can just Steel Tempest this. And I'm tempted, I'm not gonna lie. 2 health is semi-relevant. It also gets us closer to leveling up our Yasuo. Or we could take the Daybreak play here, right? The problem is, if we take this stun, we don't do anything else this turn. So I think we let this go. Because I think we would rather play this instead. Now the problem is this next turn we don't really have a lot going on. We could Morning Light, I suppose. And then they would have to answer with whatever fast speed options they have available. But again, this is just not a great matchup. Like, the longer the game goes, the more it favors them. For sure. And we're just struggling to generate pressure, so... we'll go for it. I expect responses. It could be anything from, you know, Will of Ionia, or, you know, who knows what else. Our goal is just to push as much damage as possible, and we're not doing anything else this turn. The only other option is, like, maybe we stun this to get rid of it with the Yasuo, but... alright, we got out of deny, that's fair.
Easy.
So they get another Dragonling.
Your lesson begins.
Or not. Wow, they're gonna give it up. Okay. That's interesting. I think they just realized that gaining 2 health is probably not as important as not taking 5 there. Now there is a chance that at some point this could be relevant if they empty their mana and give us an opening here, but it is also worth noting that at some point we might end up playing this even if there are not 2 enemies to pick, just because an 8/8 outside of, like, Will of Ionia is a little bit rough for them to deal with. Okay.
Fallen leaf.
Taking out 2 of our Yasuos, but one, we just casually top deck another, and 2, I was just about to say that again in this matchup I don't think Yasuo is our real key to victory. Like, they're just playing spoiler and that's fine, but Ezreal Karma isn't really known for their massive amounts of units. Okay. As much as I'd love to develop this Yasuo here, I think, like I said, I think it's that you just play the 8/8 and send it to the next turn.
Ionia speaks through me.
Interesting call. Because if they don't have something that stops the 8/8 here, if they don't have, like, the Will of Ionia, or again a stun, right, a Steel Tempest, something like that, technically Singular Will potentially wins us the game here. I just really wish that we could also play something after our Singular Will. The other option would be to flood the board and go with an open attack, but they're going to have a leveled up Karma, which is potentially problematic. I think that flooding the board is probably still
Follow the wind.
the correct play.
Watch your back.
All right, so they did have the Will. So the question now is, do we like try to slow play this? Yasuo is still at 0 of 5, which is kind of funny. And unfortunately, we don't have the 8/8 now. So Singular Will doesn't win us the game the way that we would like. And so again, we just have to decide, what do we want to do? Do we flood the board, leaving ourselves open?
Raise your weapons, son.
Or do we take the open attack? Open attack, I just don't think we get it done. They have way too much mana and way too many cards in hand. And so at this point, you have to assume they've got enough removal. So I think we continue to play threats while trying to bait out their removal and then see what kind of path opens up. Because we can play both of our Daybreak units before we even drop below Singular Will mana levels. Again, not that that wins us the game, but they also
Unyielding light.
have a fair amount of mana. And so then at this point, it just comes down to, do we also play
You ask of a man with nothing.
our Yone or not?
Honor.
And I think the answer here is yes. Now that we have 2 targets.
The wind flee, or does it follow?
And so with 4 mana left, even with the Karma on the board, we might be able to push enough here because they won't be able to have blockers. This one is definitely going to be close. And that's a good sign for us because that tells us they don't have many options and they are hunting. And we are fine with that.
Some things never dull.
And we get the surrender after all those emotes. Let's go look at the deck. So now we can look through the deck list, kind of talk through my inclusions. I do not feel like this is fully optimized yet, but we're going to take a look. It should be pretty self-explanatory. It's a lot of the Daybreak package and a lot of the Yasuo package, but I think the Daybreak package really complements Yasuo because one of the things Yasuo struggles with, or at least had struggled with in the past, is you have all these things that stun units, but you don't have anything that capitalizes on the stuns. And stun in this game is a very tempo-oriented play. You get some advantage while it's stunned, and so that's either stalling you to this ultimate late game, or it should be opening up the ability for you to like counterattack or buy you time or set up, you know, good blocks. Old Yasuo decks, and I think even current ones, don't really have a good super late game. So like this idea of you just stall until you win with Yasuo decks doesn't really apply. Even when Yasuo flips, by that point, a lot of times in order to win, you still need an established board. It's not like Aurelion Sol or Karma or Ezreal decks where you just stall and then you kind of like, oops, I win. That doesn't work with Yasuo. So Daybreak units, I think, are a great way to supplement him because they're very powerful on curve, and when you play them, they help to shore up your early game. They also give you a presence on the board, so when you do start stunning things, you do open up those counter attacks. So as such, Solari Soldier, amazing Daybreak unit. I'm also running 2 Spacey Sketcher. I like this as another follow-up early play. Sometimes it helps you discard cards that are potentially dead. As far as cards that you are trying to look for when you invoke, the one that stuns 2 targets is obviously very beneficial in a Yasuo list. Also, I like this card because we do run, you know, a number of expensive cards that cost 6 or more. And so if you get something like Moon Silver that's going to reduce the cost of them, that can be really beneficial. Specifically Yone. I think when you're playing against a Yasuo deck, you immediately start thinking about like, when do I have to worry about Yone coming down? And if you get that Moon Silver, you can catch some folks off guard because they're not playing around Yone on 6. They start thinking about it on 7, and that's a pretty big deal. Same thing with Singular Will. If you can reduce the cost of this, and then your opponent has to think about like playing around this at 9 instead of 10, I think that's a pretty big deal. So 2 Spacey Sketchers. I don't run the full complement because it's a 1/1 body, so it's great at chump blocking, but it's not great in that counter attack situation. Also, I don't think it's something that you want all the time or you want multiples of in your hand in a Yasuo list the way you would in other lists. Blade Twirler, standard Yasuo unit, alternate win con, gets out of control. Shield Bearer, solid 3-2 unit, and on curve, especially on defensive rounds, can really force your opponent to rethink attacking into you, create unfavorable moments. Steel Tempest, it's a Yasuo deck. We want to stun things. Again, if you've been watching me at all, you know in Targon lists right now I run 1 Hush, pretty standard. The only time I would think I would ever increase this would be like Ezreal lists where you want to take advantage of the multiple targeting from Hush, but for now this has just been a one of. I'm running Priestess because it's more Daybreak triggers, and then sometimes the 4, 5, and 6 cost cards are things that help supplement you that you're not running in your main deck. So in that first game, for example, getting the Sisters, that allowed us to get elusive and lifesteal units. We're not running a lot of that. I mean, we have this one Spirit's Refuge, but we're not running a lot of that in our main deck. So this lets you kind of adapt based on your game plan. And then worst case scenario, it's a good target to pitch to Spacey Sketcher. If you were looking to refine this, some of these could also be cut here. You don't need the extra Daybreak triggers, but I like having them in case Leona does flip, because these two work so well together. So right now I'm running 3. Concussive Palm, pretty standard Yasuo card. You get a body, you stall. Leona, great on curve. 3-5 body is a good strong unit for defensive options. Stunning something, very beneficial. And then if you flip her, repeatedly stunning things like the Holy Trinity. If I was going to say like the Holy Trinity for this deck, for when you really want your kind of combo to go off, or when you kind of lock down the board, is if you have Leona, Yasuo, and Daylight Spear all active, because this, once you flip her, every time you Daybreak, you're stunning something, and this is, your Daybreak cards always trigger for us. So you can just keep playing Daybreak cards and you start stunning things, and you're advancing your board while you're stunning theirs. And with Yasuo on top of it, you are likely getting rid of those units. And so it just kind of creates this chain. But again, by that point in the game, you're pretty late. Like, that should be closing the game out for you. It's not going to work against a late game board of Aurelion Sol, for example. So Yasuo decks are very tempo based, and you kind of try to win on the mid range, in my opinion. I think you're trying to close things out between rounds 7 and 10 more often than not. And I think that last game's a perfect example. We get to 10, their karma's activated, and basically, like, if we don't win there, we're probably not going to win. We needed to punish them as soon as possible, and that's kind of your window of opportunity with a list like this. But Leona, again, works so well with Daylight Spear, obviously helps out Yasuo. Yasuo, key part of the list. I currently run 1 Spirit's Refuge just because it's a really beautiful surprise combat trick, and specifically if you do get to later stages of the game and you're in a close mid-range mirror, or sometimes against aggro, the lifesteal can be a blowout. You get lifesteal triggered on a sunburst, or not a sunburst, a Sun Guardian, for example, if you're attacking on odds, so you don't get to play this on curve on 6. So this comes down on 7. You've got your 3 spell mana, your 1 leftover. Being able to swing with this and then slap a Spirit's Refuge on it to gain a bunch of health back, massive. Same thing, like if you block something with your dragon, you gain a bunch of health, massive. So currently run it as a one of. This is a card that could be cut or moved around if you wanted to make the list a bit more your own, but I like it as a emergency panic button. Daylight Spear, we're running the Daybreak package. This card is probably the most important card to run outside of Leona when you're running a Daybreak heavy list. Sun Guardian is just a great on-curve play that helps generate pressure. As I said before, this is not a late game list. This is kind of a mid-range list, and so having something proactive like this in that mid stage of the game, I think, is very important. I think it's often overlooked how important something like this is. I could even see this going up to a 3 of as a result. If you wanted to cut one of these late game cards, going to 3 here, I'm not angry at it. Sunburst is just kind of like your conditionless single target removal. Going a step further, again, if you wanted to cut one of these to go with 1 more Guardian, I like that change, but I was running it as a 2 and 2 as I test the list. And then top end is pretty standard stuff here. 2 Yones because they're great stun stuff. 2 Mind Splitters. I don't know which one I prefer more at the moment. They both offer different things. This gives you that immediate return on your investment, and it's a turn sooner, but it's a smaller body. This is a big body, and if you don't have Yasuo on the board, continuing to lock units down, whereas Yone does not do that, can also be a big benefit. So again, just like these two units, I'm running 2 and 2 here as I test them to see which I like, and then all of these numbers could be tweaked later. And then one singular will. This is the kind of card that I don't want a lot of them in my hand, and I don't want it every game, so I run it as a one of, but in niche scenarios, it can sometimes just outright win you the game. Whether it's you pick Yasuo and he nukes the board for your opponent, or you pick something like your Mind Splitter after your opponent has essentially kind of tapped out or they don't have much mana left, so you bounce everything and then you swing for 8. Also, if I'm being honest, a lot of folks just aren't really preparing for singular will right now. They don't really think about it a lot in their decision making, so you can catch some ladder players off guard, and it's just very satisfying when it works. So I'm running 1 singular will, and that's the list. So as always, that code will be in the video description. I appreciate you watching the video. If you're in the States, hopefully you're enjoying your Labor Day, and I miss you guys. I love you. So thanks for watching, and until next time.